Shannon, just when you're watching how the game unfolded, how watching the second half, what was that like on the sideline, seeing you guys come to like get the 4 touchdown at the end to be able to win back on that? Just the emotion, the energy, how were you guys able to contain that while you were trying
Well, I mean, we were just trying to stay in the moment, you know, I mean, in those situations when, you know, you dig yourself a hole like that, the only way to get out is one play at a time. And so I don't know if there was a managing emotions other than like just telling people to keep playing, you know, just keep playing ball and eventually it'll go our way if we don't panic. And so that was more of the theme than anything really.
Kind of along those lines, when it was 35-10, 35 whatever it was, they just kept showing the Miami sideline over and over and over, and you could have been winning 35-10 from the expression on your face. How important is it for your position, for Mario, for whoever, to just remain the calm in the eye of the storm, even when the scoreboard says it's all going sideways?
Well, I mean, it's the first thing you got to do, right? I mean, if you panic, it's over. Like, you know the outcome if you let it get to you. So, you know, my job and my, you know, message to the group at halftime was simply, look, like, just keep playing ball. You know, I mean, we're not doing anything wrong. It's just, and we were playing hard. It wasn't effort. It was more focus, to be honest with you. It was, you know, if you look at the way the first half of that game went, we actually came out and was running the ball very effectively. We got into some 3rd and 2, 3rd and 3s, which we didn't execute in the first quarter, and they were scoring. And so ultimately, when the game started playing itself out, you know, and then we gave them one, you know, offensively, we gave them one at the beginning of the first half, and then it was like, all right, now we gotta pick up the tempo, we gotta pick up the execution, we gotta maintain the focus. But ultimately, I always viewed it as a possibility because we had plenty of time on the clock, our defense was getting stops, we just need to put together some drives and make some plays. And so I just kept telling them, keep chopping wood, and I told Cam, keep being Cam, and eventually it'll work out for us.
Number 1 offense in the country, you know, scoring yards, but always no room for improvement. Just in the back half of the year, what do you want to see from you guys kind of, you know, moving forward these last years?
I just want to keep it going one game at a time. I mean, the ultimate goal is to win the game at the end of the week, regardless of what it looks like. The one thing that was pretty evident the Saturday off, you get a chance to watch football games. I mean, there's not a lot of games that are getting blown away in these conference games. You watch them, and every game is coming down to the last possession. The beginning of the year is a little bit different, right, because of the way the schedule rolls out. But now, you know, these games now, you can almost anticipate that the game's going to be tight, and there's going to be 1 or 2 drives, 1 or 2 plays that determine the outcome of the game. We don't know when those are. And so I think overcoming adversity is huge, and we've proven that we can do that and stay in the moment and keep the game small at times. But, you know, we got to do whatever it takes to win by 1 point. And I think that we've proven to do that. We gotta keep focusing on that.
Jalen Rivers, and Mario said, it seemed like he should be back this week. Just what is he bringing the offensive line and the offense overall?
I mean, steadiness. I mean, Markel's done a great job too. I mean, I think that goes without saying, right? And so bringing a guy in that's played the amount of snaps that he's played, and ultimately everybody trusts him. You know, not that we don't trust other people too, but he's banked a lot of snaps here. His personality is very even keel too. And so, you know, you have a guy coming back like that, that's awesome. You know, can't wait to get him back.
How nice of a problem is it to have at this time of year that there's a lot of guys on offense, and on defense too, but there's a lot of guys who have earned playing time, and that there's a lot of guys who are going to play.
Well, I mean, Coach Cristobal made this point early in the week, and it's true. You better be ready, because ultimately, you know, your number's going to be called. I mean, this game is a rough game. People get injured. People have to step up. You see that all across the nation of people handling injuries. And the only way you can handle injuries is to have a guy behind them ready to play. And so that's the development of roster that, you know, in the off week, that's crucial. You know, getting those guys more reps, getting them ready to play. I do feel like we have a lot of young guys that have played a little bit, that are capable of playing a lot, you know, and when their number's called, I think that they're gonna be ready to play.
We ask about Cam every week, and I honestly don't know, we're gonna keep asking at some point, but for as great as he's been for a number of years now, this is his first time as the Heisman frontrunner, and yet he still seems completely unfazed by that as well. How, I don't want to say surprising, because I don't think you'd expect anything else, but how do you keep that from affecting everyone else? That there's going to be a lot of Heisman buzz now you're in the second half of the year.
Well, I mean, we don't talk about that, to be honest with you, and I think that, you know, his journey to this point is a part of the reason why he doesn't care about any of that. You know, when you come from where he came from, where he wasn't recruited, I mean, he's still in, you know, this is going to be true in 10 years. He's going to have that chip on his shoulder. It's the same Cam Ward, right? And so he's ultimately trying to prove everybody wrong on every play. And so I don't have to deal with keeping him focused. Those words never come out of his mouth. He never utters anything from that. He never shows any emotion towards anything other than the focus on the week at hand. And I think with him, you know, that just bleeds over to everybody else. And so ultimately, you know, nobody really cares about any of that. I know it's out there and it's hard to not see it, but I would be surprised if he even has his stuff turned on to even read it, to be honest with you. I think he's extremely focused on playing the next week, and ultimately that's who we are as an offense, because we know that every game is different. Like, every game is going to be played out different. Like, we're not going to have X all the time, not Xavier, but it's not going to work out certain ways. So we got to just manipulate and find ways to be successful. It was a struggle 2 weeks ago, right? I mean, the first 2 quarters of play, we didn't play very well. And we played better at the end of the game. Obviously, the fourth quarter, we played really well. We didn't play great the first half. And I think a lot of that has to do with Cal's defense. I think Cal's defense is really good. But every defense we play from now on is going to be like that. You know, I thought the 2 league games we played, like Virginia Tech, I thought had a really good defense. Cal, and I think Louisville's the same. I think their defense is very similar to those 2 guys.
So to that end, did the bye week come at the perfect time? You can't control it. It comes when it comes. But did it come at a good time to South Scout and really dig in on what those defenses were able to do? And
yeah, I mean, at this point in the year, I mean, everybody kind of is who they are. You know, there's going to be wrinkles every week, offensively and defensively. That isn't going to change. But the makeup of who you are, if you're good at what you do, is probably going to be there. And you're going to see trends. You're going to see certain things. Now, we did self-scout hard this week and tried to find out if there were any, you know, things that we were doing that was overly percentage one way or the other. And obviously, you know, I mean, that's what you do in your off week, right? And so it's more about looking at what you're doing and seeing, okay, this is what we're good at, this is what we're not good at. Look at these situations, man, we're really doing this a lot in these situations. So trying to figure out some trends that we can break moving forward. And that gives you a little bit of time in the off week to do that. You don't really have that time in a regular week to look at that kind of stuff. So it was pretty even, to be honest with you. A lot of stuff we looked at was right down the line. So it was good to see, but there was also certain things that we can utilize to our advantage too.
With X, we've seen him make big plays late, week after week. The catch and run they had against Cal being the latest, just the reliability that he is, the reliability factor that he is, just how good is that to know that you have a guy like him where when you need a play, Cam just throws it near him and you're probably going to see something happen.
Yeah, I mean, he's got a lot of bank reps at making plays in crucial moments. And so I'm kind of like you when you talk about asking questions about Cam, and what else can I say about him? You know, I mean, he's very steady. You know, I don't, like particularly that play, I mean, I don't call a play particularly for people most of the time. I mean, our offense is certain plays and the quarterback reads it and goes through his progression. It just so happened that he was the first read on that play and was wide open, right? And so he got it and he took advantage of it and flipped the field quickly, which we needed to do. In that particular situation, I mean, we're backed up. We're in a situation where we must score. I don't remember exactly what the time on the clock was. I think it was a little over a minute. And so to have a chunk play at the first play was huge. Then we could kind of slow down and take some time off the clock and manage the game from there after that chunk play.
What do you see from Louisville just on defense when you watch them?
Well, I mean, they're different when number 3 is out there. He missed a game, maybe 2 games, but he's a really good player, really disruptive. Number 9, their edge got both 9 and 19. Their D line plays really hard, and they get good push off the ball. Schematically, they're very sound. I mean, I would say that they probably would be the first to admit the SMU game was a game that really stung them, and then they played really, really well this week. I mean, you could tell that they tightened the screws, and schematically they're really good with good people. It's a lot like the last 2 weeks, to be quite honest with you. We're gonna have to be good. We're gonna have to be good in pass protection. We're gonna have to be good on the edges, and we have to be great in our routes because they cover really well.
How much do you watch last year's game too? Do you do that much? Or?
Yeah, I watched it at the beginning of the week. I mean, at this point in the year, they do have so many games that they've played this year with the people they're playing with that last year's games are there. I do watch particular games from last year that have some similar carryover, like our game, USC in the bowl game and certain games throughout the course of the year. But everybody evolves a little bit, and so I spend most of my time on the games this year, but I do watch those games, absolutely.
Well, because that was a tight game.
Very tight.
What stood out to you just when you think back to last year's game where the margins were different?
Yeah, I mean, we, ultimately in that game, we didn't make plays when it was tight, and we busted some stuff when it was tight that we didn't necessarily have to. And so, I think that route integrity when the game is tight is crucial. Maintaining your composure and doing routinely what you're supposed to do on a play is so important. Because ultimately when the game gets tight and the time is down, that's when people try to do too much. So we talk about that a lot offensively. In last year's Louisville game, there were certain plays down at the end where if we just execute routine football plays, we win the game, or we put ourselves in a situation to tie it late. And you never know what happens after that because they were good on offense too. So it might win into overtime, we might go for 2, I don't know. But ultimately, controlling what we can control on offense, we could have done some things on offense last year to win that game at the end, and we didn't. And so learning from that is crucial, but a lot of that takes care of itself with experience. I mean, you've seen the last 2 weeks where that's been in our favor a little bit when things get tight. We have maintained some route integrity and some things that you need to maintain in those times. It's easy to do it when the game's not on the line. When the game's on the line, it's very important for you to do your job. And we didn't do that last year in a couple of different places.
Hey Shannon, Cam got here, you put a lot of focus on the turnovers. That was, it's kind of Achilles heel in the past. And I know you mentioned, I think you looked at every single one of them or whatever. With the ones he's had the last couple weeks, during this off week, have you had a chance to kind of refocus on that and try to, go back to working on eliminating that from his game? It's really the only time he's really failing at anything is when he's had the time.
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting dynamic. I mean, the pick he threw in the Cal game, I mean, I don't think he needed me to tell him that was not good. I think he knows that. And so I try not to point out the obvious. I just try not to, because ultimately that's not helping anybody. My job is to move forward, move forward to the next play. And so pointing out the obvious is something that fans do well. My daughter can point out the obvious, and she's 9 years old. So my job is to focus on, hey, this is what we're going to do moving forward. And so ultimately, we do talk about it in a meeting setting, not necessarily in those situations in the game. So in a meeting setting, we talk about things that can happen to eliminate those, obviously. But, there's certain things that happen in the course of a game that, I love when he scrambles around and makes a big play. I hate when he scrambles around and doesn't, So, there's a little bit of a, fine line right there with him that you got to let Cam play football like Cam plays football, but there are certain things that obviously we want to control to eliminate the big miss, right?
Since your 9-year-old isn't here, we'll ask you this, then you're averaging almost 90 yards a play in the fourth quarter. 77-yard play helps the numbers, but it's
Yeah.
pretty consistent all year.
That play counts.
It does count. Teams don't do that. Is that conditioning? Is it canned? Is it all the above?
Well, I mean, I think we've had a couple games where our sense of urgency in the fourth quarter has been really high, and so I think that that's part of it, and he plays pretty well under those conditions, which is another part of it, and everybody around him has performed well. It's ultimately has a lot to do with that. I mean, we've been in situations where in the fourth quarter we needed to pick up the tempo, pick up the pace, and do things in a little bit different way. It really has a lot to do with the flow of the game. I don't want to sit there in certain times at the beginning of the games or even in the middle and do certain things to put our team in bad situations. I pay close attention to flow of the game. And so, if our defense has played a lot of snaps, that dictates a lot of what I do too offensively, because I'm trying to balance out everything. And so, at the end of games when, hey, it's time to put the pedal down and not worry about anything, then that's probably part of the reason why the fourth quarter has been like it's been. I mean, we've had to go get it. And so, you gotta put the gas pedal down and let it go.
Last question.
The stats are out of this world. You're leading the nation in passing, scoring like crazy, all that. But when you did your self-scout, did you see a lot of ways to improve?
Oh, I mean, honestly, every game we've played, the last two games, and we've obviously statistically has been what it's been, but we've left huge chunks of meat on the bone. I mean, it's all over the place. It is all over the place. And ultimately, too, part of what you guys were just asking, we've also had some situations where we could save some huge negative plays. We've gone backwards at times and taken some negative plays where we could have just thrown the ball away, or just, at times throwing the ball away is a little bit better than like trying to extend it to create this whatever, right? In certain situations where it could be the difference between 3rd and 9 and 3rd and 19. Does that make sense? And so there's those situations, but there's also just some routine plays that, you just watch and you're like, man, we can make that play, And in the run game too, it all matters. And so yeah, absolutely, there's tons of room of improvement. I mean, you don't score on every drive, and so that's, the goal is to score on every drive. I know that's not going to happen, but I mean, ultimately, there's reasons why every drive doesn't work. And if you go back and watch the Cal game, you can look at the first half, there was, I think, 3 or 4 3rd and 3 to 4s that we didn't get. That could have, it was routine plays we could have got, right? And so ultimately, those keep the drive going, and those add to plays in the game. I think we ran, I don't know how many plays we ran in the Cal game, but yeah, but those first downs add 4 more plays, or 5 more plays, or 8 more plays,
I want to get one more real quick. With Cam, we see, always positive, same energy, very, very consistent with us. When he's watching tape, when he's assessing himself, or when you're meeting with him, how critical is he of himself?
Very.
Does he get down?
Yeah, I wouldn't say down. I don't think down is the right word for it. I just think, he gets critical of plays that he wants to make every play. And so, yeah, I mean, when you're watching tape with him and there's something that goes wrong, he will make a comment, and he's not the kind of guy to get down, because ultimately his mentality is very positive all the time. He'll just, I think the word he uses is pain. He's like, that's pain, coach. And so, yeah, I mean, he knows that, there's always room for improvement. I mean, everybody has room for improvement. And so there's a lot of plays in the course of the last 2 games that we could have done way better and kept us out of the situation we had at the end of the game. I think that's the goal moving forward, right? Is to pinpoint those and stay away from them. And so, yeah, but he's very critical of himself, and that's why I don't have to be overly critical, to be quite honest with you, is because he knows,